63 years of independence, 63 years of promises, 63 years of patience. It's time for governance now. Governance now. Let's make it work.
I would like to challenge the proposition that the Indian media are pro-establishment or pro-corporate or pro-business. I believe this is not only factually untrue, it is also analytically unsound. A look at our dominant media, the structures of ownership, the output and content, the levers of control, the linkages between different sectors of industry, tells me very clearly that the media are not pro-establishment or pro-corporate. They are the establishment. They are the corporate.
Thank you.
They are the cutting edge. They are the cutting edge of these worlds. They go much further. They rush in much more boldly, where the government of India would not enunciate the policies it has in the panel. The media will shout and scream for it. They're far more aggressive than either the corporate sector as a whole or the government as a whole. So we're talking, and by the way, they are not big business, I don't know what the heck they are. The power list of companies in this country includes several companies which we all recognize as media companies, but it also includes a hell of a lot of other companies we do not recognize as media companies, but which are very, very important media players in a variety of ways, and who are big time, in fact, media players. One intriguing manifestation of media power is the enforced silence on what has been happening within the media since September 2008. Since September 2008, 3,000 journalists have been sacked. 3,000 journalists, cameramen, assistants, and other desk jobs have been lost in just a handful of media groups. Okay? In Maharashtra alone, that was 450 media jobs in 2009 from 3 television groups and 1 newspaper. These journalists are being laid off in the very newspapers and channels that are singing to you every day about how the media is in tremendous recovery, how India never entered a recession, how India escaped the recession thanks to the prudent fiscal management of Manmohan Singh, Pranab Mukherjee, Chidambaram, and a few others who might want to categorize themselves. Yeah? So, the very newspapers and channels that are telling you that everything is fine and they're doing wonderfully. Oh, the Times of India's headline read at the height of the collapse. What recession? What recession? One of the central point I'm trying to make to you today is that it's not about good guys and bad guys. It's not about poor journalists and bad trading or good journalists and good trading. There is a structural compulsion to lie in a media so heavily integrated into the workings of the stock market, so heavily integrated into the workings of the neoliberal economic policies, they cannot afford to tell you the truth about the market. Now, what is this private treaty? I enter, say, a medium-scale retailer enters into a treaty with the world's largest English newspaper. Why does he do that? He does that because he wants to enter the big league of retail. Now, by the way, when the Times of India or other newspapers enter into a private treaty with a company, they acquire 7 to 10% of the shares of that company against guaranteed advertising and no negative coverage. Now, it becomes difficult for the journalists of the paper when your newspaper has 240 private treaties. It also raises the question of when a newspaper is a part owner of 240 companies, whether that remains a newspaper or does it become an equity firm. The particular route of corporatization within the Indian media means that you've got to lie. Why? I have 240 private treaties. I've got billions of rupees worth out on the market in terms of those shares. Then along comes the global meltdown and my shares are worth nothing. The only way I can survive is to keep them out. I have to keep the market as a whole at that time, not just my shares. It doesn't matter if the market is as rotten as hell. I have to tell the readers, I have to tell the audiences, the market is zooming back, it's doing brilliantly, because if it doesn't, I'm dead. You have a structural compulsion to lie. There is no choice on it. Therefore, two of the largest English newspapers in this country issued fatwas to their desk. You will not use the word recession. The R word was banned. There is no recession in India. The recession happens in the United States. In India, we might have an economic slowdown. So during that period of several months, India was not allowed to have a recession. And the point is, they're far too heavily invested in the stock market to tell you the truth about it. Paid news is not an aberration. Please, paid news is not an aberration. It was a perfectly logical outcome of what we've done with the media. As you hyper-commercialize every other aspect of society, as you commercialize every imaginable aspect of media, how do you think news will somehow stand alone, untouched, and regal above the fray? That isn't going to happen. When you commercialize everything else and you sell everything else, then you're going to sell news as well. The fundamental feature of the media of our times is the growing disconnect between mass media on the one hand and mass reality on the other. That's the first. The second is what characterizes the media. Now, a structural shutout of the poor. This is not neglect. Poor people are not wanted. The instructions, the memos of all these newspapers tell us this clearly. Who is the target reader, who is not, which areas we are interested in, which localities we are not interested in. Okay? So there's a structural shutout of the poor. Just to give you an example of what that would mean, it means if you look at the beats that are organized in newspapers, nobody has a full-time agriculture correspondent. So the labor correspondent is extinct. The agriculture correspondent is like the Yeti, occasional sightings but no confirmation. When you say, I will not have an agriculture correspondent, I will not have a labor correspondent, you are saying, I am not going to talk to 75% of the Indian population. That's what you're saying. You are saying 75% of the population do not make news. The third point, the corporate hijack of the media agenda is one issue, and then the corporate hijack of the media itself. Top corporate heads of India are on the boards of some media or the other. That of all the institutions of Indian democracy, the media are socially the most exclusionist arm of the Indian democracy. The worst government has far greater representation across the social spectrum because it is necessary and mandated by law and constitution. Try finding Dalits in the media. Try finding Adivasis in the media. Try finding them at any significant position in any major media. It's not going to be easy for you. You will find one.